Jacked up steering again. So you can see we're right back where we were, and that mount is stuffed back up against the base. Steering wheel is up 2.5 inches again. And so what I did last night was I pulled this, I mucked the grease out of the top portion of the joint, and then I filled it with a really strong solvent degreaser. And my thought was that that'll let everything, if it's a hard gummy grease issue, that'll let everything soften up. And I have yet to pull it apart down here and see if it'll slide. My other thought is that when we tipped this cab back, I didn't pull the steering bar. I just went ahead and let the slip joint take it. Now I'm wondering, have I maybe got it hyperextended? So my thought was, with it still jammed up there, I'm going to take it loose here at the bottom and see if I can force that end up. And if I can get it to force up, then I'll try taking it loose at the top, these clamps, and slide the whole steering wheel back down and put it back down. If when I take it loose, it slides, relatively easily, then we know that it's some sort of air hydraulic piston thing going on right here, and I'll need to come up with a vent of some sort. If it is just rock solid when I get it off, then we might be dealing with a hyperextended joint, and I'll have to figure out, did I wreck it? Can I get it to go back? What's going to need to happen? So that's what we're working on this morning on our maintenance day. First, I gotta get this thing off. I've been looking at this, trying to figure out how to put a hinge. It needs a hinge down here. If it had a hinge right there, then you could just take that top bolt loose and flip over. But no, these are steel lock nuts. I replaced them with nylocks. But these were steel lock nuts down here, and you had to have a wrench on the inside, and it's all a nasty, icky mess. It's a pain in the butt. No wonder nobody greases these lower ones. Though you can technically get in there. If the steering wheel is pointed in just the right way, you can get into it from right here. So now I have the cover off. Now the way these work is there's a spline shaft right here. I don't think there's alignment splines. In a lot of cars there's an extra fat spline, so these yokes can only go on one way. But I don't think on these trucks they have it. It's pinched by this through bolt right here, which also passes through a groove, a half groove, in the shaft, which means in order to get these off, you must pull the entire bolt out. Otherwise they won't come off. When you're prying on them, don't pry against the end here. That's the rubber dust cap for the seal, and you can see that mine's leaking a little bit. Put a wrench or something on this metal shoulder and pry against the wrench. Try to pry them up. This thing is supposed to be down here, right? So I don't know yet if it's my fault and if I hyperextended it and jammed it, which the more I think about it, the more it's becoming somewhat of a real possibility. But I don't know yet. I'm going to get this loose and we're going to find out. If it's jammed, my current plan is to pull the entire shaft back out again, find a block of wood and a step ladder and some helpers, and try very carefully just to tap her back down and get her back in the regular spline portions, and hope that I don't know, just hope that it isn't ruined. Barring that, I'll have to go to a machine shop and get them to weld a new slip joint on, or come up with another steering shaft. First, this all the way out. Don't try to take them off without taking that all the way out. You'll wreck everything. Alright, so here it is off. And it's looking an awful lot like a hyperextension. So it looks like I probably did that completely to myself. I did that when we swapped this motor, and I didn't pull that bar. It looks like that's completely my fault. So I'm going to get a block of wood that I can sit on, and a block of wood I can tap on, and then I'm going to see if I can, with very small taps with the zert fitting out, just get her to go down, and see if once I have her down in the regular operating range, if it settles out and moves properly, or if we're boned, as it were. Won't know that till I get down in there, though. Well, the folks on Reddit would have liked that. Yeah, it was hyperextended. And once it got down to a certain point, she just went glurp and sprayed all this goo out. Splattered everywhere. Wish I had a helper. I'd have been filming it. Could have made some pimple popping money on YouTube, but it, see that? Anyways, that is a joint that is working properly now. So I just need to clean up the mess I made, put it all back together, and of course shove that steering wheel down. So you can see the stub of the steering wheel is recessed up in there. But my gut feeling tells me that if I loosen that and I loosen the clamp inside, she's just going to drop. I might end up loosening that with some water. But yeah, I'd say we're going to have this. I'd say we're going to have it just fine. And lesson learned, no harm done. Holy smokes! Well, I wonder if that's why my oil pressure needle's been jumping around. We're going to need a little splice right there. And to reroute that, that must be the rubber mud flap of the fender shield rubbing on it. See? That's why you go underneath these things all the time. Anyways, I'd say we're going to have this steering wheel issue fixed. And I think it was 100% my own fault. I do not think it was hydraulic action of any kind. I think I hyperextended it, and then when I brought it back down, it just shoved everything all the way up. Which makes me wonder if I ruined this end seal. I bet you I did that. I bet you that's all my fault too. Right there, ruining that end seal. Oh well. Now you know not to do it on your own. What's that do?
It makes it go, it pushes it back, so you make it roll down the hill on your ghost tours. I figured it out.
So steering column's back down. It dropped very easily once all the clamps are out. And you can see the end of it sticks through properly, like it's supposed to. And I've got myself a helper in there who may or may not be an assistance as far as getting the steering wheel line back up. I've cleaned up the shaft completely using some mineral spirits, because if you went through this much work, might as well put it back clean. And I'm going to give it a touch of grease here in a second. It slides up and down very, very easily. And I think we're all going to be just fine. It was definitely my screw up from when we tipped the cab back. But we're going to put her back together. Joint feels nice and tight. All the U-joints are nice and tight. The only thing that shows like it might have had some damage is it's possible we made this weep. But I've wiped it down, and we'll see if the weeping stops now that the pressure is off of it, because it must have had a tremendous amount of pressure shoving it in. So that's where we sit there. But yeah, I'm not going to show the finished product because absolutely that was 100% the problem. I'm just going to put her back together, and that solves my jacked up steering. It was never jacked up in the first place. I jacked it up. See, that's punny.